Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:02 p.m. and the date is Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board currently consists of 5 members and 1 alternate. The alternates taking full part in discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Members present tonight are Ben Lockman, Paul Isherwood, and alternate Shay Myers. I'm Rob Delich, Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. We are missing 2 of our normal voting members tonight and 1 unexpectedly, so we will have 4 members voting for this evening, for these cases this evening. Also present representing the city are Zoning Administrator Mr. David Riggs and Zoning Intern Corbin Figueroa. There are 2 cases on tonight's agenda for properties located at 61 Hudson Avenue and 63 South Court Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone who's present here wishing to speak tonight concerning any item on the agenda, please stand.
For an applicant too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You can be seated. I now invite you to view. Are we doing the viewing?
We don't have the rules video, sir.
So we don't have the rules video tonight because of the location complications here. If you didn't hear, we were bumped by City Council from the council chambers where we normally meet because they didn't meet yesterday on the holiday, so they're meeting today instead. So we'll roll right into our cases. So what the rules normally do is go through, there's 6 questions we're required to consider as part of our decisions for variances, and it explains those in detail. So the first time we go through those, I'll read what those are to make sure you understand what those questions are, so read some details about it. Normally we'd have a video that explains that.
Rob, do you want me to just read them down so that they're ahead of us, because testimony comes first?
Okay, sure.
The rules of the board include evaluation of variances and based on the following rules. The first are that there are exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Is there a practical difficulty or undue hardship because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property? A literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purpose. Number 3, the preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and in the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and in the same vicinity. Number 4, minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Number 5, absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. And finally, number 6, not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other, or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation.
All right. Thank you, Ben. So our first case on the agenda tonight is case number 25-11V at 61 Hudson Avenue. The appellant is requesting variance from ACC 23.04.01B to allow a non-owner occupied short-term rental in an R1 zone. So Director Riggs, would you please give us your brief of the case?
Yeah, so this is a variance request for a short-term rental in an R1 zone. Short-term rentals are allowed if they're owner-occupied. So this is like a subcategory, non-owner occupied short-term rentals, and some non-owner occupied short-term rentals are allowed conditionally in an R1 zone if they meet certain criteria, which is location-oriented. This does not meet any of those, so the request is for a variance from the code to allow a non-owner occupied short-term rental in an R1.
Okay, so it's because of the conditional use that is potentially allowed. I was thinking there was an R3 allowance, but is a owner non-occupied allowed in any R zone?
So there are some non-owner occupied short-term rentals that are allowed in an R1 zone, but they're location specific.
Just location.
Yeah, they're location specific.
So how about R2 and R3?
So if it's conditionally allowed in an R1, it's allowed in an R2 or an R3.
Okay, so it is allowed in R2 and R3. That's what I was thinking. Any other questions for Mr. Riggs? Board.
Do you have any idea how many? Do we have any R1 short-term rentals currently? Or
Non-owner occupied R1 short. I believe we do, but I don't have a list in front of me. So and some of those are conditionally permitted, and some of them are allowed, right, as conditionally permitted use. I just don't have the list in front of me.
Can I ask one question? I don't know if it's just you guys talk or if we're allowed.
Not yet. Yeah, there is certain, this is like a legal proceeding actually, so we're supposed to follow rules the state's given for this, and so we'll try and follow those. I'll let you know when it's opportunity for other folks to speak.
Thank you.
So here's the thing, so there are some non-owner occupied in an R1, are they because they were there prior to the zoning
No,
change?
that would be a grandfathered use,
Yeah.
and when we did this, the city council allowed some non-owner occupied short-term rental uses in certain areas, and I can list
Isn't
that
it
for
like
you.
the State Street in Lancaster? I
Let me
thought?
find it here for
I've
you.
got the code section pulled up here, and it's abutting those corridors as well
Yeah,
as
East
abutting.
State Street, Carpenter Street, Lancaster. and
Yeah.
Columbus Road.
We're
Yeah.
abutting an R2, R3. or
Abutting an
B zone.
R2 or an R3 or any B zone, or the principal home fronts on East State Street, Carpenter Street, Lancaster Street, or Columbus Road. Those are not automatically permitted, those are conditionally permitted, and you have to come before the board. Zoning appeals here to get approval. A conditional approval would also have to come before
And
the
this
board.
isn't abutting.
This
it.
is not abutting any of those, right?
Hence why it's
A variance.
in this case, yes. Okay, any other questions? So at this time, I'd like to invite the appellant or their representative to please approach the podium. So we'll have you sit here. So whoever's speaking will be sitting in this seat, or if you want to stand there, you can. If you don't want to
Do I,
sit down.
I can sit. Do I need to face the camera?
No, we just want to make sure we can hear what you're saying, and I think you've got a mic here, so it should be fine. Please approach the podium and provide any pertinent testimony or give reason with why the request should be viewed.
Okay, so
And yeah,
if you cannot hear me, let me know.
You can say who you are and your address.
Okay, so my name is Sue Brosh. I just bought a house in 26 Elmwood, which is right across the Hudson. They're adjacent with each other. So it's just 1 minute away. So the reason I do that is my husband, we live in this town since 1984 when we were kids. So I've been here for 41 years. Suddenly he passed away last year. And so being a fixed income and a widow, I was looking for income, earning. And so when this little house come up to market, I live right here on the Elmwood. So John was informed me, and I'm like, hey, this is a great opportunity for a widow, to live in this town. So and I looked at the property and I bought it, and immediately I clear up all the weed, all the paint the house, clean the gutters. It's beautiful. It's harmonic with the surrounding. It's a small house, but I do have 2 lots. It's 2 bedroom, 1 bath. It's such a small house on a big lot. I have 2 lots. So in other words, it's not going to be a noisy. I have my own driveway. I have a garage on this tiny house on a 2 lot. So I do know it's an R1. If I do a long-term rentals, if something go wrong, if it's a leaking or anything, I will not know. Because the rental could be there or could be gone, I do not know. It could be flooded my basement. For me, as a fixed income, it will be very hard on me. So I asking for permission to grant a request for variance, so that when the customer leave, I can go in and clean up and see if anything leaking or anything flooding. That is the primary reason that I asked for a short-term permit, rental permit. It's not like I'm living 10 minutes away or 15 minutes away. I'm right around the corner. I might not be on top of the roof or on the basement, but right there. So more than that, I am going to put on the house rule on the Airbnb listing, after 10 p.m. be quiet, and no party at any time. Most of the people who come to this town living in the estate, probably parents, like Father's Day, Mother's Day, Homecoming's Day, And it's only 2 bedroom. How many people can squeeze in, right? Only 4 maximum. Airbnb will not allow you to do more than that. And again, going back to why I want a short-term permit, so it's financial reason, and also I'm living so close together with that street. And that street right now, right here, it's only a few minutes away from the library, from the pizza, from the restaurant. It will generating business for the surrounding. And I don't think it will cause any harm to do the surrounding, like the neighborhood, right? People come and go, and I will keep the flower beautiful, the landscape. If I rent it long term, I don't know what they do. A year later, when the term is up, and hey, my basement, my wood floor is all gone, that will be very hard on me. So there's a reason I'm asking for so. Any question about, do you guys want to see it? Anybody like? So I live in the 26 Elmwood, so. Yeah, if you guys want to see it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
And look at the zoning map right now. The
Sure.
parcel map right now. So does anyone have questions on the board, have questions for people?
I think the one thing that I was a little confused about on the original packet that we got, I think is your application to the code office. It says, it doesn't, I'm not quite clear on how many people, you said 2 bedrooms. On the requested occupancy, it's 3 unrelated adults or a family.
Oh, there was a misunderstanding when I first applied. They asked me, what do you want? How many maximum people can live in there? So it's totally erased that one. It's totally misunderstood. So when I put in the Airbnb, maximum will be 4 person. It could be a mom and dad and a child, and come visiting the big brother or big sister, and that's it, right?
And then, but it also could be for unrelated people as well.
No, when
No.
you register on the Airbnb, it's only one guest that you can bring your friends.
Okay.
That's it.
But the listing is for four people, one person renting it, but
Right, it could be their friends
Part of one
coming.
group,
Yeah, yeah.
I do have a question about that. But I think that's
A question for Mr. Ricci.
yeah. So R1s are only there are
Three
unrelated
unrelated.
adults,
Mhm.
correct? So
But you could have two couples there.
two
which
couples would be fine.
Would be fine, yeah.
But
Three unrelated.
people is the maximum. Okay, I think that's, and there are 3 parking spaces on the property,
Yes, I have a big long driveway and a garage.
and stacked parking is
It's allowed.
acceptable for in R1.
The
Okay.
code office would have checked that, so.
Yeah, no, I figured. I was just
Or else there'd be
unsure
a
about
variance, there'd be a variance for that too.
Right. Thanks, I think that's all.
Any questions?
I think at this point, no.
Okay, so why don't you take a seat, and we'll give you another chance to come back up after other folks have spoken.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone present who's wishing to speak in favor of the request? Again, you consider standing whatever you want.
I'll sit. I'm tired. My name is John Wharton. I'm a realtor. We have a property management company. Dave knows me well. I've been in this business for 40 years. I certainly understand the reason why the regulations provide for a Airbnb with an owner being in a residence to provide the management oversight, control the noise, the environment, etc. As Sue has explained, that certainly makes sense if it's an out-of-town owner. She's a block and a half away. She will provide her contact information to her neighbors. She owns a house. It's either going to be an Airbnb or it's going to be a rental. You'll have less likelihood of oversight and peace and quiet if it's a long-term rental, because that's what we do. And we rent to 600, 700 people every year. And we don't adopt them. We don't monitor them. They abide by the lease, or we have problems. But we don't really know what's going on everywhere. We don't do bed checks. We don't know who's there. We answer a lot of students, and I assure you, there's more people living there than what is on the lease in many instances. It's less likely that will occur in this type of a situation. So, it isn't an issue of whether the house is going to be occupied or not. It's a question of oversight and control. And I think you'll have more oversight and control for the benefit of the neighbors, especially if they live in the neighboring properties, as an Airbnb than it will be if she turns it over to me for us to manage as a rental. Because, we just don't, we're not there every day. We're not there every 3 days. We're there when they request us to come fix something. And that's when we discover more more beds than what we're supposed to be there sometimes. Lots of boyfriends, girlfriends, and I'm not here to judge whether that's good or bad. That's just the reality. So I think it would be to everybody's best interest, with Sue being so close by and so willing to comply with any restrictions that the board might want to request, that I think it makes sense. But that's all I wanted to say.
All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the request? Favor of the request? Okay, feel free to come forward. Excuse me, I'm having some allergy issues, so I may cough a little bit here, but I'm not really sick.
My name? Hi, I'm Shelton King-Chelberg. I live in Athens. I've been here for almost 30 years. I'm not in the real estate business, but I have known Sue for most of those 30 years. Our husbands worked together in the same department at OU, so I've known her for a very long time. And what I wanted to speak to was more her character and responsibility. She's really detail oriented. She's very good at maintaining things. Gardens, she loves gardens. And I think that although it is an R1, I live in an R1 neighborhood, I think having her property right there on a large lot, being small, gives her the opportunity to oversee it closely because she's not very far away. And I also think it's not a rental that would end up a long-term rental that might have students in it or something. It'll more likely be adults coming in for a weekend or 3 days or whatever. And I think that allows for a lot more control over situations that arise. And with her living that close, she probably almost could hear noise if they were being noisy or something like that. So I guess I'm just more speaking to the type of person she is as to whether she's trustworthy or not, and saying I think she would probably make a good neighbor for all the people who live in the community who worry about no interaction with, a house that they don't interact with. She would be in the neighborhood. She would become part of their community, and therefore become a very accessible person that they can interact with. I think that's all I had to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else who wished to speak in favor of the request? Okay, seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment? Not in opposition or in favor, but just general comment about this issue or this case. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to anyone wishing to speak in opposition. So let me caveat this with that we normally read the emails and letters that are sent to the board, whether they're for or against the case, or in general comment as well. There are so many, there were 19, and we'll list them, but we're not going to read all of those. It would take far too long today to do that. So what I'm proposing we do as the chair is to let anyone here who's present speak in opposition. If you've also submitted a letter to the board, you could read that letter if you'd like to, or just say whatever else you would like to say as well.
Mr. Chair. I would, you might want to point out that everybody on the board has read all of those letters.
Yes, thank you. So yes, we've had, those letters were provided to us as they came in, and so we've had them available to read. I don't believe there were any new ones today, so there's been time for us to read and digest those, and so we're taking that information into account in our decision, helping us decide how to answer those 6 questions we talked about.
They're also available online, right?
Yeah.
They are public record, and if someone was interested in those letters and would like to read them, you can request them, or they might be available to download as well. I'm not sure, without a request. So how I'd like to do this, I think, is first allow folks to speak that are present here, and let me know if you are someone that submitted a letter to the code office and that has been provided to us, and if so, if you'd like to read it, we would encourage you to do that. It's up to you. Sound good so far? Mm-hmm. Anything else you need to say here? We've got it covered? Okay, so anyone present would like to speak in opposition to the case? Identify who you are and where you live, your address, and mention if you've submitted a letter or not, and address.
My name is Alan Olson. I have not submitted a letter. I own a residence at 30 Meadow Lane, next to my in-laws at 32 Meadow Lane. I grew up in Athens from 1964 until 1978 when I graduated from OU. My parents lived here another 10 years, and my in-laws continue to live here. About a year ago, my wife and I purchased the property next to her parents so she could take better care of them as they are. One is 90 and one is approaching 90. As Ms. Sue indicated, it is a very nice location in that it is very close to the library, which I don't think Airbnb people are going to take advantage of. It is a residential neighborhood, quiet neighborhood, and one of the reasons that we moved here, in addition to her parents being here, was that the location became available amid what I'll call somewhat of a shortage of owner-occupied houses for sale. So as far as the people coming here as a short-term rental, I understand that there are proper rules by Airbnb and so on. How you assure that those rules are followed, I don't know. If you are familiar with Nashville, Tennessee, it is the bachelorette party capital of perhaps the whole country. One of the issues they have is that some outsiders come in to Airbnbs or VRBOs in residential neighborhoods and create a nuisance. Can I guarantee that that will happen? I cannot. Can you guarantee that it won't? Yes, you can, by denying this zoning request. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to speak in opposition to this case? Okay, come forward. Again, state your name and address. And let us know if you've written a letter. And if you'd like to read it, I could provide you the text if you want to read it.
Hello, good evening. My name is Zach Grayman. I live across the street at 61 Hudson Avenue. Like yourself, I purchased the property about a year ago. Had been searching for housing in Athens for about 3 years. I grew up in Benton County, Ohio, right next door, and I moved to Athens for the first time in 2006 when I began my undergraduate career at the institution. Since that time, I've considered myself an Athens resident, being in rental properties throughout the area. Lucky enough to have secured that permanent place just this past year. My apologies, I did submit a letter. Sorry, got ahead of myself.
Your name was Zach?
Zach, yes.
Last name?
Grayman, Graman.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies.
No problem.
A little nervous, I just jumped into it.
That's okay. So am I.
I appreciate that. My concern with the granting of this variance is I know owners of properties adjacent to mine and know that those properties will potentially be hitting the market soon as well. And I don't want this to open up a door that we can't close. I don't want this to be an opportunity for additional Airbnbs to hit the market. The house right next to mine, I know the owner very well. I grew up around him the entirety of my life in Benton County. He's the chair of the Democratic Party, or at least was. So I was very involved and know that they're planning to sell that property as well. So I just don't want this to potentially continue. I too myself experienced financial hardship. I am a single individual living with a mortgage of about $1,800 a month currently, but I'm making it work however I can. I don't have the financial capability to purchase properties for rental purposes. I do have a long-term lease on my property, but I am the owner and occupier of that place. I'm willing to forego that lease, that long-term rental licensing, if that's helpful to the case at all. Yeah, there have been a few other things in my mind that I believe I covered in the letter, so I don't want to repeat that content, but I just wanted to provide some additional context there. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Yes. Can we have a second chair, maybe?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zachary Martin, and I'm the homeowner at 59 Hudson Avenue, the very next door neighbor.
My name is Lynn, and I'm Zach's partner, also live in 59 Hudson.
and we're going to go for the just read the letter approach,
Okay.
just to be thorough.
Good.
So we are in opposition to this variance. So we are, like I mentioned, the immediate next door neighbors, and our driveway lies directly adjacent to this property. And meaning that if the variance is granted, we would be living just feet away from a constantly changing stream of short-term guests. This proximity makes us uniquely and disproportionately impacted by this request. We are especially concerned because under ACC 23.07.10c, the board may only grant a variance if specific findings of fact support that all required standards have been met. This application fails to meet multiple critical standards. 1. Practical difficulty or undue hardship. There are no exceptional or extraordinary conditions pertaining to this property that would make literal enforcement result in practical difficulty or undue hardship. This is a standard residential lot with no unique physical constraints. The property can be reasonably used for long-term rental or owner-occupied housing, both permitted uses under R1 zoning that contribute to Athens housing stock. The applicant's preference for a more profitable business model does not constitute hardship. 2. Exceptional circumstances. No exceptional or extraordinary circumstances apply to this property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone. This is a typical residential property in an R1 neighborhood. Every property owner in this zone faces the same zoning restrictions, and none constitute exceptional circumstances warranting a variance. Number 3, preservation of equal property rights. A literal interpretation of the regulation does not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others. All R1 property owners may rent their properties long-term or occupy them as residences. Conversely, granting this variance would confer a special commercial privilege, that is, operating a short-term rental business, that is currently denied to all other property owners in this zone and vicinity. 4. Minimum variance. The requested variance is not the minimum required to make reasonable use possible, because reasonable use is already possible without any variance. Number 5. Absence of detriment. The authorization of this variance would be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, particularly ours. As immediate neighbors living mere feet from this property, we would experience ongoing loss of privacy, unpredictable noise and activity, safety concerns from unknown transient occupants, and potential parking conflicts. Short-term rental guests, unlike permanent residents or long-term tenants, have no investment in maintaining neighborly relationships or community standards. This variance would also materially impair the purpose of R1 zoning, which is to preserve stable residential neighborhoods. Lastly, 6, not of general nature. The applicant's situation is entirely of general nature. Any property owner could make the same request to convert residential property to commercial short-term rental use. This is precisely the type of recurrent situation for which the zoning code has established a clear general regulation. Such uses are prohibited in R1 zones. There would be significant and specific impacts to our property. As the closest neighbors, we would experience 1, loss of privacy. Random strangers would be sleeping and otherwise temporarily living mere feet from our windows and outdoor spaces on a continuous basis. Number 2, noise and disruption. Regardless of the rules that hosts put in their listings, short-term rentals inevitably invite transient visitors in unpredictable noise, traffic, and activity at all hours. 3, safety and security concerns. We would have no way of knowing who is staying next door on any given night. 4, parking conflicts. Our driveway runs directly along the property line. Short-term rental guests unfamiliar with the property could easily encroach on or block our driveway access, creating ongoing disputes and potential obstruction. 5, impact on families and future planning. We are thinking about our future here, not just for ourselves, but for the broader community. While we do not currently have children, we are mindful of how this change could affect families in the neighborhood and our own family planning. The idea of raising children next to a property with a constantly changing roster of unknown guests is deeply unsettling to us. It undermines the sense of safety and predictability that families rely on when choosing where to build their lives. This concern extends to other families in our neighborhood who have chosen R1 zoning precisely because it provides stable residential environments. Finally, the impact on the community and change in precedents would be harmful. We chose this neighborhood for its residential stability and neighborly relationships, not to live adjacent to a commercial lodging operation. Granting this variance would undermine the purpose of R1 zoning, which exists to preserve stable residential neighborhoods, set a dangerous precedent, signaling that zoning protections are negotiable and inviting further conversion of residential housing. Lastly, exacerbate Athens' housing crisis by removing another property from the long-term rental market. We understand and empathize with the applicant's personal circumstances, and we recognize the challenges of navigating life after loss. However, zoning laws exist to protect the long-term character and safety of residential neighborhoods. These regulations must be applied consistently and fairly, regardless of individual situations. We support the owner's right to rent this property to long-term tenants as permitted under the current zoning. However, converting residential properties into commercial short-term rentals is incompatible with R1 zoning for good reason. In conclusion, we respectfully urge the board to uphold the integrity of our zoning regulations and deny this variance request. Thank you for your time and for service to our community, and I believe Ling has something to add.
Thank you so much for giving us the chance to speak up our opinion, and we're sorry for your loss as well, Sue. I want to emphasize on 2 points that Zach mentioned. One in terms of the total value of the neighborhood, and second in terms of the safety. So we have been living here for 4 months, and we were very lucky because we were in Atlanta before, and luckily this house showed up after a lot of effort to trying to find a house to live in Athens. And when we first visited the neighborhood, we felt very peaceful. And so far, when we live here, we had a chance to talk to the neighbor, and we feel more the value of the neighborhood. So I think like the decision today will help to strengthen that value of the neighborhood that provide to like the current neighbors or the current resident and also future resident that want to live Athens for a long time. And second, in terms of the safety and security, so far, I think for the past like 1 month or so, when the house got sold, I also got, like insecure when different people come and fix the house. And one day I was going back and just saw random people with equipment on the driveway fixing something, and like they didn't even mention something with me or asking for permission. So I think like it's just one example of having random strangers nearby and make me feel very insecure. So I think it's really important, like a neighborhood. It's called neighborhood. It means that we know the neighbor, we know everyone around. So again, I think the current value of the Athens area is really meaningful to a lot of residents here, and also the safety aspect as well. And I think that with the knowledge and with the experience, I hope the Board Council could make the reasonable decision to protect this neighborhood for us and also for future residents. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of, in opposition? Anyone else wants to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none. Excuse me. So what I want to do here is go through the list of, we'll mention all 19 here in this list. Only one of these letters that were submitted specifically came with a request to read it at the meeting, and so we will read that one. And that's the first one. One of you like to volunteer to read that letter? It's a typewritten letter.
It's the first one?
Literally, typewriter.
I can
the
do it.
first one. Can you read it okay on your phone? Or do you
Yeah, I got it.
You can use this again.
Oh, well,
So,
I won't say no.
Yeah, there you go. So before you do it, let me start the list here. Okay, so these are comments submitted for case number 25-11V for 61 Hudson Avenue. The first of these 19 is Brian Powers at 8 North May Avenue in Athens, and writing in opposition, requested to be read. So, go ahead, Paul.
7th of October 2025, Tuesday, to the Board of Zoning Appeals, 28 Current Drive, Athens, Ohio, 45701. Read case number 25-11V and opposition to variance request. Dear members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I am writing today as a concerned resident of Athens in strong opposition to the request for a zoning variance for the property located at 61 Hudson Avenue. The request seeks to permit the operation of a short-term rental in an area zoned an R1 residential, a use that is currently prohibited by City Code and is fundamentally incompatible with the character and purpose of our residential neighbourhoods. Before detailing my objections, I want to state that I do not know Ms. Sue Brash personally, and I offer my sincere condolences for the passing of her husband. My opposition is not directed at her personally, but rather at the significant negative impact that granting this variance would have on our neighbourhood, the city's housing landscape, and the integrity of our zoning regulations in the years to come. In her letter, Ms. Brash states, allowing this property to be used for short-term rentals for visiting families will not be detrimental to adjacent properties and will not impair the purpose of the R1 zoning. With all due respect, this is a claim she cannot possibly guarantee as an absentee owner. My family and I live a couple of doors down from an existing legally zoned Airbnb in a mixed-use area, and our experience has proven that such properties can be extremely disruptive and detrimental to the peace of a neighbourhood. We are frequently disturbed by the transient nature of guests, inconsistent and often illegal parking, and loud people coming and going at all hours of the night. Just as one example, we have been woken up in the middle of the night on multiple occasions by guests of the Airbnb who are heavy equipment operators. They start their loud trucks and idle them for hours, followed by their diesel equipment loading on trailers before finally leaving in the pre-dawn hours. While that may be an extreme example, we have had plenty of other guests playing loud music, revving motorcycles, and throwing parties, despite the owner's requests not to do so. We have spoken with the owner of the Airbnb, and they have assured us that they tried to be selective with their guests, yet the incidents continue. Ms. Brash's promise to include rules against parties or excess noise is well-intentioned, but ultimately unenforceable for an absentee owner. Contacting the police to report noise complaints only goes so far as the property owner is not present and there are new tenants every weekend. The burden of disrupted peace invariably falls upon the neighbouring permanent and or leasing residents. This variance request fails to meet the required standards for approval as outlined in City Ordinance 23.07.10C. Specifically, number 1, practical difficulty or undue hardship. The applicant's need for income, while understandable, is a financial motivation and does not constitute a hardship inherent to the property itself as the ordinance requires. This is a business venture, not a response to an extraordinary condition of the land or structure. The property can be reasonably used as a long-term rental without variance to the current zoning. Exceptional circumstances. There are no exceptional or extraordinary circumstances applying to this property that do not apply generally to other homes in the R1 zone. The circumstances described in the applicant's letter are personal and financially motivated, not conditions tied to the land or structure. Number 3, preservation of equal property rights. Granting this variance would deprive current residents of our right to the quiet enjoyment of our homes, a right protected by the very existence of R1 zoning. Number 3, continued. Granting this variance would confer a special privilege on the applicant that has been denied to other property owners in this and other R1 zones. Number 4, minimum variance and reasonable use of the property. This applicant's letter mentions providing housing options for families visiting Athens, a need that is already met by the numerous hotels. If the applicant's goal is to provide housing for families, the most beneficial and reasonable use is as a long-term rental, which directly addresses our city's housing shortage. Converting a needed family home in a desirable neighbourhood into a short-term rental, a use that duplicates existing services, cannot be considered a reasonable use of the property from a community standpoint. Number 5, absence of detriment. As stated above, granting this variance will be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties. Furthermore, it will materially impair the purpose of the zoning code, which is to preserve the stable residential character of our neighbourhoods. introducing a transient commercial lodging property directly undermines that core purpose. Finally, and most importantly, granting this variance for a short-term rental property in an R1 residential zone sets a very dangerous precedent. An approval of this variance would signal to investors and speculators that our zoning rules are flexible, encouraging them to swoop in and buy up available properties in residential zones with the intent to turn them into short-term rentals. This does not help our city. It directly harms our community by reducing the housing stock available for families, university employees, and other long-term residents, further exacerbating the current housing crisis. For all the reasons stated, this variance request fails to meet the stringent standards outlined in the city's own zoning code. I urge the Board of Zoning Appeals to make the right decision, to protect and preserve our neighbourhoods, to uphold the integrity of our zoning regulations, and to deny this appeal. Thank you for your time and for your service to our community. I look forward to hearing your decision on this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions at this time. Sincerely, Brian Powers.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Has to be one of the longer ones we read.
Yeah, well, it is, but he specifically requested that, so. So the next 18, I will read the names of the individuals, their address, and they were all in opposition to this case, this variance being granted for this case. So, and then at the end of this, I'll give anyone here another opportunity to speak in opposition if you haven't already. So, one more chance. So, number 2 on the list, Denny and Pam Boger, 122 Maplewood Drive in the city of Athens. Number 3, Carol Simpson, 68 South Shannon Avenue in Athens. Jen Muhlenkamp, 68 Hudson Avenue, Athens. Brian Muhlenkamp, 68 Hudson Avenue, Athens. They sent separate letters. Christine Doherty, 22 Hudson Avenue, Athens. Michelle Weaver Linton, 20 Sunnyside Drive in Athens. Shawnee Chapman, 59 Sunnyside Drive in Athens. Grace Tokars, City of Athens resident, no address provided, also in opposition. Richie Geyer, 11 Sunnyside Drive, Athens. Kathy Straley, 21 Elmwood Place, Athens. Mike Adkins, 8 Patton Street, Athens. Richard Krantz, Kraince, Krantz, like best shot. 70 Hudson Avenue, Athens. Mark Weinberg, 47 Elmwood Place, Athens. Zachary Martin and Lynn Nguyen, who spoke and read their letter already. 59 Hudson Avenue, Athens. Terry and Melanie Smith, 18 Meadow Lane, Athens. Zachary Grauman, did I pronounce that right? Grayman, okay.
I respond to those things.
I have the same problem. 58 Hudson Avenue, who also spoke here, as well submitted this letter. Aaron Rennick and Adam Eulish at 94 Grosvenor Street, I think it's street in Athens. Kathy Berry, 78 Elmwood Place, Athens. Those are the 19 individuals. Is there anyone else who has not spoken that would
I
like to?
didn't submit anything, but can I be put on that list? I'm the president.
Well, you can make a statement here and that'll go into the record.
Okay,
So, did you swear in before?
absolutely.
Okay.
My name
So
is,
feel free to make a statement here and that's in the record then.
sure. My name is Larry Lambert. I'm a resident of 76 South May Avenue for 45 years, resident of Athens for 74 and a half years. I'm in total opposition to this. I just came tonight because I really didn't have enough information. I wanted to see what was actually going on here, so. But I just don't think it's necessary. I've noticed my neighborhood's declined a lot over the years as older people have died off. The rentals are a problem already, some of them. I know this doesn't speak to that, but this thing is even worse than that. Short-term people coming and going, in and out, partying, whatever they're going to do. I just don't think it's necessary. We already have it. It's zoned for residential area and it needs to stay that way. I just think it's the best thing for this neighborhood. I really do. That's one of the reasons I chose to live here, where I'm at, because of the residential area. It's not quite South Mesa Speedway. The speed bumps don't do any good. They're too small. Oh, that's something else altogether.
You and I should talk sometime.
Yeah, stop signs don't mean anything to anybody. People with cell phones going by all the time. I mean, I can't go there, but that's basically what I have to say. I just don't think it's necessary.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the program.
Anyone else here who hasn't spoken in opposition would like to speak? Okay, so let me flip back to my script to make sure I do this all right. So the appellant or the representative may speak again if they'd like and offer a concluding summary or rebuttal to any of the remarks that have been made
I
available.
would like to.
So feel free to come on up
Okay, thank
and
you.
do that.
I hear all the opposition, and the bottom line is, in their perception, they said that the market value will drop. The noise, right? This is what, in their perception. They already condemn me before I have a chance to prove it right. I mean, this is a permit, renewable every year, right? If I was wrong, then shut it down next year. Right? Why condemn me? Because you think, in your perception, the market value will drop. Let's assume that, first of all, he was saying that based on this and this and that, I should not even request for the variance. Then why you have the board here? Because I have the right to ask for the variance, whether or not it's granted. There is a legal issue. And the second is about the market value. How do they know? Based on the perception, they go against me. They have no proof of it. Perception is not equal to fact, right? And also the noise. They think there is a noise. They couldn't sleep, therefore it's the Airbnb, right? When everybody go out of town, they all stay in the Airbnb, but they don't want Airbnb in their neighborhood. I mean, I have such a small house, a big lot. How noisy can it be? And I don't get it. So, and next one, right? They said that, okay, if we have all the party, do they have proof? Right? The machinery going by. He could be in his imagination or in his drugs or whatever, or it could be the case. But how often do people put in machinery in the driveway on Elmwood and Hudson Avenue? It's mostly utility company, right? And the gentleman was saying that somebody was on the property. Yes, it was Tim Newman who doing the surveying. That's why I have this piece of paper. That was him. And he was allowed, I don't know if he said hi to them, I have no idea. He has a right to measuring the property. That is not my fault, right? Whether it's long-term or short-term, that has nothing to do with it. And that's all I have to say. So, any question? Anybody?
Final questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to close the testimony from the floor, and the board will deliberate. If we need to, we could bring someone back up to ask questions if we need to, or ask questions to Mr. Riggs. But, so before we go through the questions, any discussion?
Well, I just wanted to actually clarify something. I believe there would be a short-term, and maybe Director Reeves, this is for you, there would be a short-term rental permit, as well as, like, the owner would need to maintain a short-term, or a rental permit in addition to grant. And I guess that would be true whether it was a long-term or short-term, right?
Correct.
The rental permit would be subject to be renewed, but the variance would be granted indefinitely, tied to the property, right?
You could approve it. You have the right to approve a variance with conditions if you want. But typically, if you just approve a variance, it goes to the property, no matter who the property owner is, and it runs with the property. and it's approved.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Does it lapse with change of use?
I'm sorry?
Does it lapse with change of use?
No,
Is
it
gonna be
shouldn't.
change of
It
use in
shouldn't.
an
It's,
R1 zone?
yeah. So if they stop using it for a year or more, and then it shouldn't change. It should still be allowed as because you've approved that variance. That variance would stay with the property.
Unless we put a condition. and say
You have two.
otherwise.
You have two other options. You have two options. You could put conditions on the approval, or you could after you've approved it, you could go back and look at it again and say, we think we made the wrong decision and revoke that approval. You have the right to do that later on if you wish.
Has that ever happened?
Never happened.
Okay.
Not that I know of. Yeah.
So we have talked about conditions before, and so that's something we've done a little bit of. So you might keep that in mind as we're going through the questions. One of you is going to make a motion. And think about if you want to include conditions, and we can discuss that at that point. All right, so first question. Are there exceptional circumstances? So this is about conditions applying to the property in question.
Really don't. I'm not sure there are any exceptional circumstances, and not only that, I think that this is potentially a case where this is explicitly not allowed in this area. We do have language in the code that allows short-term rental applications to pursue a conditional use, and that's spelled out, geographically, locationally, where those can occur. This is explicitly not a permitted use, and so I think my concern with granting this approval is that it's an erosion of our current zoning code. It sets a precedent, as I think a lot of people have brought up in their opposition letters.
Although, keep in mind that we are supposed to be considering this case on its own merits, and so technically we wouldn't be setting a precedent really. In our minds we might be, but there's no such thing really as a precedent when it comes to these kind of decisions. So another one of these were to come up, the circumstances might be different, and we may or may not approve that regardless of what we decide here today.
Or they might be the same.
It could be.
But there's also nothing specifically exceptional circumstances related to the specific property.
And I think that's really the concern, right? Is I don't know what the exceptional circumstances are here, right? And so if we're granting a variance for a property with no exceptional circumstances, I think that I think that's I think we have language in our short-term, and whether or not that language that's in the code about short-term rental is adequate, I think that's another conversation. But we do have language in our zoning code that spells out criteria for where these are permitted, and that's been discussed and decided on by city council in previous discussions.
I would add to that that's also fairly recent, the introduction to city code.
Yeah,
And so it's been considered by council more recently than many things that we deal with on a common basis, regular basis.
All right, so is there a practical difficulty and undue hardship? Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions, sometimes I read this out loud or through my head just to make sure I get what we're trying to do here. Pertaining to a specific piece of property. The literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes.
I would say, the biggest thing here is that there's probably a reduced revenue opportunity with a long-term rental versus a short-term rental potentially. I don't know that has a specific attachment to this property
But
per se.
because you already city council created that ordinance knowing that,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, I don't think it's exceptional.
It's not, yeah.
It's that is, potentially it could be seen
Yeah.
as a hardship.
by denying the variance, the R1 allowed uses of the property are still there's no denying of any of those.
Not really.
Yeah.
All right, preservation of equal property rights. So let's deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and same vicinity.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, this feels like it would be a special privilege that's granted. That's not, that is widely not available to anyone else in the. I don't know if there are. I'm not aware of any other cases like this that exist, but I think this is a privilege that doesn't exist broadly in the neighborhood if it was granted.
Next.
Yeah, I know of one other that exists in the near East Side neighborhood, and it's a completely landlocked property that is its own parcel, and is in some ways, can be determined as like it's a business, not
I have to
Yeah.
trouble hearing you, sir. Can you
Oh,
speak?
sorry. Yeah. There's one other variance. We do evaluate these all individually, but there is, to Shay's question, there is at least one other that we've seen that is on Morris, but it is on its own parcel, and it is a completely landlocked and has no access to it. So in that case, that is very specific to that property.
It actually was on a separate parcel.
And it is on a separate parcel.
Minimum variance. Did I say that right? Minimum variance. I think one of the facts that put that pretty well is that it seems like there is no minimum variance in this
Yeah, I don't know.
situation.
Yeah.
Right. Absence of detriment. So is there a detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning or point of interest? Not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property. So I think that's the sort of crux of this. A lot of the opposition has been talking about the detriment potentially.
My feeling is that detriment is it's kind of been to some extent the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Some of these things I think are, I would rather have a long-term neighbor than a short-term neighbor. But I think that things that are kind of more inarguable are its impact on the local housing supply, and short-term rentals by nature do remove housing stock from the long-term housing supply. That's in its name. And in a community that already struggles with lack of housing stock, I would say that is detrimental on a larger scale.
Yeah, I mean, that's the public interest part. And I would also say, it's hard for us to say, like, exactly, like how we were saying, the eye of the beholder, but I do think that, the short-term rental issue, if you can put controls in place to say these will be good short-term renters, I don't see why that's so difficult to see. We can take care to ensure that we're renting to good long-term renters. And there are certainly avenues open to property owners to protect their property.
I would hope that is the case, but I do think that from a market pressure
Sure.
perspective, short-term rentals tend to look nicer and from the outside, but that may not have any relation to how they impact their neighbors.
Sure.
Right? I think that's mostly just
I have no doubt this will probably look nice no matter what we decide.
I think so. I imagine so.
So I think I agree with the sentiment there. Not of a general nature. So I think we've had one of these other requests similar to this that was in an R1 zone that was not in the area that would have been covered by conditional use, and so we had a variance request. So this hasn't come up too often. So I don't think it's of a general nature in that respect, but
I think this is actually very, we have had other we have the one behind Kindred.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
We have the
And,
one on
yeah, the
East
one
State Street.
on Morris. The one on the East State Street was conditional.
Yeah, on which we did not.
But
The one on Morris.
and the other one on the second one on the East State Street was also conditional. So we've had a lot of Airbnb requests. I would say it's the most common
The
request. that we've
conditional
had.
has been.
But yeah, it's at least that between conditional and conditional.
I mean, and I think another way to look at that, you know, we're in the basically the very top of the zoning code as you're working through. I mean, we're talking about permitted uses, which is a very fundamental part of the zoning code and a very, you know, very clear part of the zoning code. And so I mean, to me, this is a very general request because, you know, again, the zoning code says, you know, very clearly what is permitted, what is conditional, what is not, and this use is not permitted in this location. And there's not a path like there is for the locations called out in the R1 zoning that we talked about earlier, where short-term rentals are allowed. You know, that path is not created for this neighborhood, and that's, you know, explicit in the code.
And so then maybe what we could say here is that if it's of a general nature, like you guys are saying, generally speaking, that's where the city council should do something. If there's something broken in the code or that needs to be adjusted to fix the intent, potentially. So that's something that we sometimes have made those kind of statements to send to city council to let them know that we think, or the planning commission, for example, that we think that there are things that need to be adjusted in the code because we keep encountering them here. I'm not sure if we're quite to that point, but I think the fact that this is a variance in our one zone like this, maybe something isn't quite right in the code.
Well, I mean, but as Ms. Brash said, she has every right to come and ask for the variance. There's no
Absolutely
problem with that at all.
Right. Mr. Riggs, you want to say something about that? You look like
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Thank you.
Let us go down the rabbit holes.
They're upstairs.
Right now, yeah. Tell them. Excuse me. So, would someone from the board like to propose a motion?
Before we do that,
Sure.
I think we're just returning to the subject of, you know, conditions on this before we vote on it.
Mhm.
You know, I think if something like this were to be approved, I do think it's problematic to basically grant this in perpetuity. You know, we have, I think like Ben brought up, you know, it feels very inconsistent with where we are right now with our comprehensive plan addressing housing issues. You know, the city through Welcome Home is looking to build new housing units in the neighborhood. This would take one off the market. I think, you know, something like this maybe is a little bit more palatable if it has, you know, if there's a termination date to that variant, which would require, you know, the owner to come back, whether it's the same owner or a future owner.
Yeah, so normally I think of this as something where we set a condition like maybe it doesn't convey,
Yeah.
or maybe, I think what you were thinking maybe is set a number of years. I'm not sure if we could do
I think
guess.
either one, yeah. Yeah.
So we have looked at other conditions for short-term rentals in the past, such as requiring a local contact for a property manager, especially if it was not someone local. In this case, that doesn't seem to be necessary.
The city council is about to make that a regulation anyway.
Regarding,
Having a local contact for rentals.
right, that is true.
And
It is being, it's proposed
It's
in
going through,
readings, right?
yeah.
Not tonight, but it's in readings. Right? Which is something we came up with, I think, first.
Yeah.
All right, so would someone like to propose a motion?
Just to pull it up so I have the right language. I'll make a motion for case number 25-11B, located at 61 Hudson Avenue, where the appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.04.01B. And the motion is to allow a non-owner occupied short-term rental in an R1 zone.
I'll second the motion.
No conditions. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. In favor of granting the variance, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. So we have, the variance is not granted. Okay, so we have another case coming up here, which I'm going to
Hey,
announce.
could I impose for a second?
Chuck.
No, just for the second case, not this case. My son owns the house next to 63 North Court, the one that you're going to hear next, the building next to it.
60, okay.
Yeah, he owns 65.
So do you want to speak about that one? or-
I didn't know it was on the agenda. Our family owns it. Brian specifically owns that building.
So
His name's on the
Are you
deed.
planning to stay and speak, or?
I just wanted to say I'm in favor of it before I walk out the door, okay? Yeah.
Thanks, John.
See ya.
So case number 25-12B. Mr. Riggs, could you provide us with your brief?
Sure,
of the
thank you
case?
very much, Mr. Chair. I did want to clarify this because it's a little bit confusing. We tried to explain this as best we could in the notice, but the appellant is requesting a sign variance for the projection, not the number of signs. So Playa Bowl is allowed one sign, and that's what they've applied for. Hotel Lostro is allowed one projecting sign, and that's what they've asked for. So this is not a variance for an additional sign. It's a variance for the maximum length of that sign, projection of that sign. These are projecting signs. The code specifically says 3.5 feet is the maximum length of projection, and they're requesting 4 feet on both of these signs. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, that was my first question.
Yeah, thank you for clarification. I thought it was a little similar to previous.
It was. We tried to word it better, and it's just. I wanted to explain that clearly here.
Yeah, so we had a previous case that was for 2 signs for one business.
Correct.
And that was the variance. There might have been a size variance too.
And the projection variance as well. Yeah.
It was something similar, I think.
Very similar. Same building.
Yeah, same building, but
Yeah.
It was actually, I looked at the notes, it was slightly larger, it was for a 4 foot 10 inch and 7/8.
okay, so a little bigger than.
Yep.
1 and 3.5 is
Okay.
And I think we
we approved.
We did.
One
sign,
One sign,
and we agreed to the size.
yeah.
we
Well,
let-
we did not approve 2 signs, we approved one,
Yeah.
only approved the projections size.
And so there's one, of course, not really.
And the compensation there was that they could put an interior sign on the front, so they had it on the sides on Union. I think they were going to put a interior sign in the window
Yeah.
as in lieu of that.
I think the students have found them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so at the time we knew that there was the possibility that these requests could be coming forward. So that there were additional businesses in the same building which would be allowed to have signs. So I think that this makes sense. Any other questions for Mr. Riggs?
Is the sign that they put in for Keens the size that they requested?
Yes.
Do you know that?
It's the same size as that one?
No,
It's
it's
more.
like you said, 4 foot 10 inch, where 3.5 was allowed. That's what we gave them. That's what they installed.
So so the one at Raising Cane's is bigger than what these are?
Yes. It projects more from the building than this request.
Because we didn't get anything, or did I? Maybe, yeah. Oh, we did, yeah.
Okay.
I'm having other questions.
All right. So at this time, I'd like to invite the appellant or the representative to please approach the podium and provide any pertinent testimony or give reason why the request should be viewed favorably. Please identify yourself.
Good evening, David Kozar, address 1555 Lennoxtown Lane in Columbus, Ohio, 43212. I'm giving you my office. Yes, this is almost a repeat. It's a little smaller than the other one. We're staying within the square footage that's allowed within the code. It's just projecting 6 inches further, and it's 1.5 feet, I guess, shorter. We are staying within the height limits as well. Of being higher than, I think the code said 9 feet or 8 something feet. So we're going to pad the bottom of that at 10 feet. So that puts at the top of that at about 12 feet at the top, still below the second floor. So the sign is a little bit smaller than what was granted before. And there are 2 signs, but for 2 different businesses. I'm not going to go through all the 7 of those. I wasn't prepared to do that either. So I apologize, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have in the stuff that we got, like, maybe not the same thing?
Yes.
There wasn't really much on the I feel like when we got the request for the Raising Cane's, they had a pretty clear idea of what the sign looks like. Is it just this? Like, is that, or does it have more kind of detail to it?
No, it's pretty simple. I mean, they're both black. They're raised letters. I think it describes it more at the top there, where it says all graphics, logos, and letters are raised and painted in white, and then the pliables may be a little different because there's some color under theirs. But it's the same thing where it's an LED lit, coming down from the top.
So
that's what
there
that's.
are lights on it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of more visual if you look at what's included there. That gives you an idea of what.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that does not really come through. On
Yeah.
the scan,
Yeah.
but,
Sorry.
It's okay.
They have a better sign vendor, I guess, than we did.
Is there any particular reason why you couldn't do a sign that was within code?
It's just the logo and the script, the size of the logo
Yeah.
and stuff. So we were trying to keep it within the 8 square, whatever the total square footage was. It 4 by 2, so 8 square feet. We're trying to keep it at that, and that just it's what fits. And then we wanted to try to mirror what Pliables was as well. We were trying to stay consistent between the two of us.
And these are going on the front on
On
Street.
Court Street. Court Street.
On Court Street.
Yeah, everything on Court Street. The entrances there are on Court Street.
Yeah, this
It said east elevation, but I'm like, hold it, are there 3 doors on that side? I guess there are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll go here and here. That's
There's
the, that's the
4
corner.
columns there. So these will be the.
So that's Union.
So the
there.
corner is on the right side.
So
where the
Raising
current
Cane's is
sign-
here.
where
Is
the
that correct? Is
current
that Raising
Raisins-
Cane's there?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so their signs
So
on the
yeah.
corner.
Lostro
Correct.
here, Playa here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And the Raising Cane sign comes out, projects them. No,
They
it
all come
projects
straight
this-
out.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
all
that's
coming
right, yeah.
straight out the same way.
So they're all the same side.
Correct.
I thought we'd see some of these on the other side. That's interesting.
Now, Raising Cane's is the entire Union Street.
Fronts.
Yeah.
You denied their second sign there. That's where they would have had the second protruding.
right, and they chose to put on Court Street.
Yeah, which you can't see because there's the glass is frosted, but they didn't realize that.
Yeah. We heard the complaint.
Yeah. So that was a detail that someone missed. It was required by the historic people to have that be frosted, and Raising Cane's was unaware of that.
Okay, any other questions for the appellant? Pretty straightforward. All right, so if there's any opposition here, we'll bring you back up.
Okay, like I said, I think
We'll check and make sure that,
right.
there's one other individual here. Okay, so is there any present here wishing to speak in favor of the request?
You did have John Wharton.
John did say he was in favor, thank you for reminding me. That was John Wharton, lives here in the city of Athens, I think. He's a city resident,
University States. Yeah.
University States.
Yeah, he didn't actually give his address the last time. But he's
I
spoken
think we
before.
should be more particular about that. Do we register an opinion that isn't either today? So
a little
like
weird.
send it into the office or a testimony. That's like,
During the hearing, technically, it was a little weird.
yeah.
I think I'll leave it up to us as individuals to decide if you want to consider that as part of what's helping you make the decision here. Is there anyone wishing to speak in general comment, or anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Since I'm the only other person here, I'm not here to oppose.
Do you want to speak in general comment?
Well, I'm the manager of the Beckley building across the caddy corner, and where the college bookstore is. We are not opposed.
Why don't you come up and say what you want to say.
Oh.
Introduce yourself officially
Yeah.
here and say what you want to say.
Well, essentially, I wanted to say I don't have any comments. I'm just here to
Curiosity.
listen and learn and what was going up. Yeah. That's
But
it.
you're not opposed or
No.
particularly speaking in favor of the
Neither.
Or have a
just,
general comment.
just, nor do I have a general comment. But just here to learn what was going on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
That's about our favorite kind
Thanks,
of
guys.
So, would the appellant like to make any final statement here? Okay. So I'm closing testimony from the floor, and the board will now deliberate. Any discussion before we jump into the question? Hearing none, are there exceptional circumstances?
So, just thinking about notes from the same building, not the same case, obviously, and individual in nature. The exceptional circumstances, I think that we said at that time, that it is a historical building, so it limits kind of some of the things that they can do with the building as far as
That's
signage.
And to the point, they couldn't use the window that they expected to be able to take out.
And that was a driving decision that like a building mounted sign was not feasible, right? So the projecting wasn't permitted because of historic regulations. Okay.
So there are exceptions.
So
Okay.
there are showing a building mounted sign here, it says Austro on it, is that different somewhere?
I think it's
It's not part of this variance.
inscribed into a stone as part of the building.
Oh, is it already there?
We just did one to the armory. It's and it was allowed by.
Is it already there? Because it was originally the Austro as a service, car dealership, wasn't it? Was that what it was
At
called?
least in our case, the building was, because it had a stone that had an inscription there, you can replace it with a new stone with a new inscription. So my guess is that would be similar, but that is only a guess.
So is there a practical difficulty or undue hardship?
I think I'm more mixed on this one. I don't think that there's a exceptionally clear, apart from the exceptional circumstances that we already noted.
It's the proportion of the logos, I think, is the thing referred to here as something that has made it difficult to make it a smaller size. We shrink it considerably. That's the only thing I've heard.
Well, I'm not to skip ahead, but I'm going. It's like sort of somehow connects a little bit with minimum variance. I mean, if they're not asking for a like galactically much larger sign.
Essentially, so.
Yeah. So it's like they've tried to stay within the size, the overall size that is allowed. It's only one dimension at which that they are asking for a change.
Preservation of equal property rights. We already granted one of these for size variance as well, right, in the same building.
Yeah, but I don't think we technically consider variances as equal property rights. I think when we're talking about equal property rights, we're talking about other like Court Street businesses primarily.
Yeah, and we discussed this last time too, probably, I think that most of the other signs are not projected very far. In fact, many of them seem small. But,
But a lot of them do have the ability to have, they don't have to face like a large sign on the face, like,
this is not allowed here. It's
uh,
And this,
I think that's the practical difficulty in hardship. Or some of the circumstances.
and I agree with you, like Ben, like not just thinking solely of the other property when we dig around this. This is actually smaller protrusion than.
And,
And I don't know which one exactly that would fall under, like equal property rights or minimum variance, but.
I will say as far as the like scaling piece, it's like a 4x2 sign versus 3.5 by
Is it massively
1.75
difficult?
sign is like not like 3 inches difference, right?
I mean, my guess is if we say no to this, they're still going to come up with a sign.
It's kind of why these feel a little bit difficult because it's hard to say what a minimum variance is.
Yeah.
We're kind of relying on the word of the appellant to say like our branding doesn't work with the what is allowed in the city, and I don't know, we're kind of like it's hard. That's hard to demonstrate, I think, or it feels hard to kind of.
I would say that like if you have a variance, it has to be more than what is allowed, right? Or zero, right? It's like and if it's zero, then it's not worth us granting as a variance. The question would be is there a meaningfully larger sign that isn't at least 6 inches large? Is how I would.
And that's fair. Yeah, 6 inches feels like if a variance is required, right? Like then it feels like a minimum variance, and I think
significantly less than what
yeah.
asked for, right? Like, they asked for 10 inches in addition to that 6 inches, right? So it feels to me fairly minimal.
Yeah.
I would say.
Absence of detriment. Is this going to harm the adjacent properties, the owners?
No one opposed.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't. Have I think for the course of my tenure on this board pushed against no one opposed being an argument for absence of detriment. I think there
It's
are some
one
parts of town
one
that have-
factor.
right.
It's one factor. That's not the
But I also think that there are parts of town that get a lot of pushback when there's a variance requested, and then there are other places where that wouldn't happen just because there aren't.
And
There are people to
Opposed.
be aware of it.
And that's part of why we're here is to examine detriment as opposed to just like rely on. Yeah. But it is. I think it is in some ways noteworthy that no one came out and said, even the people who came and showed up, that they're opposed to it. But I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's like there's not in favor or in detriment.
Well, that's a good point. No one came and said, "Oh, this is the best." I really make it. I won't be able to see it. Yeah, no.
I mean, I do think that sidewalk's pretty wide there. It's a very prominent kind of building on a very prominent corner. Like it does feel, reasonably sized. I think. Yeah.
It's not any lower than the previous other signs on that building. I looked at that as well when I was doing my research, and so it doesn't seem like it's detrimental from a pedestrian standpoint.
And again, not to get tied into the other one we get, because I know we count. It feels like we're referring to it more than we probably should. But when I drove, I just went and looked at the building today, and I was like to get a sense of what that one felt like, and it didn't feel like it was in any way like overly imposing or affecting the over general nature of the street or creating any kind of impediment in any way. It's fairly unobtrusive for a sign that is bigger than code. We need to get out and do an updated street scene for that.
There it is. Why is it not showing up here? Yeah, this one's from 2019. I think. Yeah. The newer one's still not showing up, so the new street view is still not showing up here. I'm trying.
we have any additional? Yes, there's that.
Yes, I can see it, it doesn't have anything written on it, but allowances by the historical commission. Okay, so not of a general nature.
Yeah, I think it's a historical building, and yeah, that's why that we're seeing this at all. We have other historical buildings, so in some sense, maybe it's general for historical buildings, but I don't think we have particular call-outs within code for historical limitations of property use.
And I think part of their challenge is not just the historical building, but it's part of the is because of that glass.
Yeah.
That it makes it very difficult to put a sign above your build. So we have other historical buildings, but I mean, you could argue that's historical.
Riza was allowed to put
that
face a sign on the building, but it's not on the historical part of the building. So
but I mean,
that's the reason
whatever
that was
this has
allowed by
been
the
multiple things, but there was no Quiznos thing. I mean, maybe it was
But
up
they didn't
here.
put it on the historical part of the building
Yeah,
to obscure or change the character of the building.
Yeah, so I don't think it's general.
And in this case, the Lostro building is really, the whole face is historical. And so you can't really put signs on that except something that's like we're talking about here.
I think, my one concern coming into this was that, this variance could possibly be granting special rights to, a larger, kind of corporate business like, the Chick-fil-A example, and then also Pliables that may not be as accessible to like a smaller local business. But I do think this is probably specific enough of a case, given the historic requirements, that maybe that's not maybe there's not really a direct correlation there.
All right, any other discussion, or would someone like to propose a motion?
Yeah, I'll just find a piece. So I propose a motion in case number 25-12V, where to approve a variance where the applicant is requesting size variance from ACC 23.03.13I1G to allow two projecting signs, one for Hotel Lostro and one for tenant Pliables, with a length of 4 feet where 3.5 feet is the max permitted.
Please add the address.
The address is 63 South Court Street.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, so those in favor, please raise your hand. 4, 0. Have your variance. I was not sure how that was going to go.
Minutes?
Yes. So we have minutes from the BZA hearing on September 9th, 2025. Members present were Aaron, myself, Alicia, Shay. We only had 2 of us here, so we can't actually vote.
100, yeah,
Any
first
3
floor
is
are 100s.
and so we have to wait.
Yeah,
So
then I think
meetings
I
adjourned.
forget, we have that, we have a list.